It's really, really lovely to be with you. As I said, I've been so encouraged myself by all the things that you've shared, and hopefully this will also be some encouragement. And also for those of you who are just starting out, some background. Who is Arocha UK? What is Eco Church? Plus also maybe some suggestions and getting started ideas as well. And hopefully there'll be time at the end as well for questions. So I will go through it in a fairly speedy way. But I'm going to share with Ben and Rosie these slides after today, and also some other documents. But you'll be able to have these slides that you can edit, and if you wish to share them with your own church or other churches, you can do that as well. So don't feel like you have to make lots of notes. Please do just listen and or make a note of questions that you might have. Arocha UK is a Christian conservation charity, and this is our mission, caring for the earth and demonstrating the Christian hope for God's world. Arocha UK, Arocha means the rock in Portuguese. Arocha was established by a retreat centre, in fact, a bird research centre in Portugal. So that's where the word Arocha comes from. We are Arocha UK. There's an Arocha International, and there are Arochas in various countries around the world, from Portugal to Kenya, Ghana, different places around the world. So we are Arocha UK. And here in Arocha UK, we have three main programs. So I'm going to be talking a bit more about Eco Church, but I just want to mention these other two because you may hear about them as well. So our conservation program has something called Partners in Action, and the partners are Christian landowners. So they may be farmers with small holdings, they may be large estates or small estates of land. So that's what Partners in Action is. Wild Christian is our program more for individuals and households to sign up to, with email support, communication, eco tips, and things like that. So those are three sort of core aspects of our work. I'm part of the Eco Church team, and hence being here with you today. So the Eco Church survey is sort of the core part of what Eco Church is, which I'm going to explain in a moment what that means. The survey's been running since about 2016, and it's a practical framework, as we'll discover, that helps you, your church, go through this implementing creation care into all aspects of church life. But I just thought I'd share some numbers, which for Truro are really great. And it was nice that Ben was encouraging you at the beginning of this time together, just to say, as a diocese, to progress towards the Silver Eco Diocese Award, you need a few more registrations and a few more churches getting awards and getting to silver. But you're also in a really strong position, and that's thanks to you, to your work, to your pushing and advocating for creation care in your own churches. Nationally, there are over 8,000 churches registered with Eco Church. Over 4,000 of those are awarded, and then 67 of those are gold. So I just really want to share those numbers to say you're part of a big community, but we also recognise that getting to gold is quite a high bar. It's ambitious. So don't feel discouraged if you're thinking we're not there. Excuse me, we're not there yet. But please excuse me. What I want to highlight is that you are also support for one another. So it's a bit difficult to see, but there's a map at the bottom of that. And on our website, you can go onto the Eco Church map and have a look at churches near you. And they're great sources of support. So not just Church of England, that might be churches of all denominations. So don't forget that. You're part of a national community, but you also have other eco churches near you who can be a great source of support. So those are a few numbers. Excuse me, I'm just recovering from a cold. I'm just going to take a sip of my coffee. So I just want to highlight really what the Eco Church ethos is all about. For those of you who are familiar with it, a few things in our recent survey update, which happened at the end of last year and now is all live. There's a little bit of a shift, and I want to explain why we have carried out an update of the Eco Church survey. First of all, it is to reflect the increasingly diverse church that we are part of. The churches that participate in Eco Church come from all sorts of backgrounds and traditions, from Quaker Meeting House, expressions of church that maybe are fresh or pioneering models. It was lovely to hear about churches meeting on beaches. There are some churches who are part of it who only meet outside. So we really want the survey to be able to be utilised by churches in all sorts of settings. Another part of the update of the survey was to really reflect the fact that the twin crises we are facing with the loss of biodiversity and climate change, the urgency is just ever greater. So the survey was really to get us up to date. It hasn't been updated since it was launched 9 years ago. So this is making sure that the questions are reflecting the state that we are in at the moment, and that reflecting us as created beings are part of God's creation, which has really come through in the meeting today. Also having the sense of urgency that we really need to be acting now as churches. So the survey is aligning with that. It's aligning with churches, or the Church of England, for example, their net zero strategy. So very much in the buildings and energy section, there's alignment with that you'll see parity with what the directions are coming from the national church. So that's some of the reasons for the update. One of the things that we continue to highlight with the Eco Church survey is a sense of ownership. It's designed to be owned and interpreted by your church and your church setting. So answering those questions with integrity and within your local context. And I'll explain a bit more about how we've got some new pathways that help you to make it specific to your setting. Another a particular change in the updated survey questions is something about a sense of commitment from churches. So when you go into the survey questions, you'll start to see that every category has a question about commitment. And this means that it's not a compulsory question. You don't have to say, yes, we have made this commitment and understanding. And it was interesting, the idea that you may start or register for the survey, but there may not be a whole church awareness at that stage. And that's absolutely fine. It's really great to get going on the survey. But in time, in order to progress through the awards, it's important that there's this sense of ownership and commitment from the church. So there's some statements about commitment at the beginning of each category. And I've also noted on here about additional comments. When I'll show you in a moment some screenshots of the Eco Church survey, at the end of all of the questions, there's always a space for additional comments. We really encourage you to use that whenever you complete the survey. That helps us when we're reviewing applications to have a deeper sense of what's going on in a church. And sometimes you're doing things that there aren't questions about, so it's really good to share those. They're also a record, so when you progress through to your silver award, you can go back and say, oh, right, well, we noted this at that point, and here's the progress that's happened. So it's a reference for you and for us. So do use the additional comments space. I've also noted on there timescale reminder. So if you have been have an Eco Church survey open that is the old version of the survey, and someone mentioned this about their application for silver, you have until the end of January to complete that application. If you have not yet started a new survey, or if you realise you're not going to be able to get that application in by that time, open a new survey. It will be the new and updated version, and just transfer your answers onto that. Obviously, not everything that you've done is not wasted. The new survey, there may be some additional questions or a change of slight change, but none of what you've done is wasted. So if it's not ready to be submitted by the end of January, be be on the next version, which is version 3. It says V3. If you open today a survey on the Eco Church website, it will be the new version. So that's kind of just trying to explain it for those people who are already involved or partway through a survey, just to highlight those time frames. So I'm just going to quickly go through each of the 5 aspects or the 5 categories on the Eco Church survey, just to give you a sense of what they cover, and also particularly that will highlight to those of you who are new or who've been used to the previous survey, some of the changes. So worship and teaching is the first section in the Eco Church survey, which is about embedding creation care within worship, prayer, and learning of your church. And as I said, each section begins with the first question is about a commitment. So the question 1 of this category says, our church recognizes and teaches that creation care and action to address climate and nature crisis is integral to Christian faith, and that the church has made a commitment to that. So one of the things I like to highlight is that we can come to Eco Church from different places. And as you are all advocates for caring for God's earth, you may very much come from it from the point of view of this understanding that we are part of God's creation, we are interconnected with creation. But that may not be the way that everyone in your church comes to it. You may be promoting this idea that if we're more environmentally friendly, if we can save on our heating bills, if we can change to more eco matters, we can save money. And that might be the way into Eco Church. So you may not feel ready as a church that you're making this commitment here, but you may be making it in the buildings and energy section. So there's not one way, there's not a correct way of doing this. And try not to feel overwhelmed by all these areas. Start at the area that seems most appropriate for your church. These are the themes that are covered in the worship and teaching. Worship and prayer, people, teaching and discipleship. In a few moments, I'll explain where you can see all the questions for this category. I'm not going to go into that in detail right now. But I'm just going to now outline the next category, which is buildings and energy. So again, there's a question about commitment, and then we have themes, questions around carbon, measuring, the building, and people and policies. And as I said, this very much reflects the quick wins that's shared by the Church of England and to do with the route map to net zero there. So that's something that, again, you're not doing things that are in contradiction to perhaps your that things that you're being asked of by the diocese, and they're very much go along the same paths. One of the things that we have done with the update of the Eco Church survey is to try and make sure that the survey can be used by churches in different settings. And we recognise that some churches are very busy. They might have activities going on every day. They've got lots of people using the building. Another church may be a church that's only open once a month, or doesn't even have its own electricity supply. So we've got 3 pathways. And when you go into the survey, you choose the pathway that most suits your setting. So that's what those pathways are. Pathway 1, busy, regularly used churches. Pathway 2, small, intermittently used churches, perhaps even a church that doesn't have its own energy or water supply. And then pathway 3 is for churches without their own building. So maybe you meet in another space or you meet in a school. Okay. Land and nature. And again, we have pathway options here just to recognise that churches have very different settings. So pathway 1 in this section is for churches which manage or have some land around their church building. Pathway 2 is for a church with very limited or even no grounds or land. Sometimes when a church isn't quite sure, it's worth exploring both pathways to see which one most suits you. one of the things in the survey is that even if a church feels they just have a strip of car park or they don't have any land at all, we really are encouraging that engagement with nature. And that might be through community spaces, it might be through getting a community allotment, or collaborating with other people in the community. So it's not, we still want that connection as a congregation, as a worshipping community with land and nature. The next category is community and global engagement. It's really great that we had Paul on the call. I'm not sure if he's still here, that you have people within your team who are really focused on this as a diocese, who can support you. And one of the things about Eco Church, when I was talking about pathways into it, is that engaging with your local community is equally valuable to these other elements. And what we expect to see from an Eco Church is a church that is outwards looking at how the climate and nature crisis is affecting people and nature within the immediate area, but also globally. One of the things I highlight here is things like fair trade. Fair trade is a really familiar aspect to many, many churches, and having that connection of seeing how the choices we make within our lifestyle here affects our Christian brothers and sisters elsewhere in the world is an important connection. So we've got lots of resources around community and global to help you to think about how to apply that in your setting. And the fifth and final category of the survey is lifestyle. We're encouraging individuals within our churches to live joyfully and sustainably as followers of Christ. So this section is really about encouraging individuals within the church and households to integrate creation care into their daily lives. So that's just a whistle-stop tour through the 5 categories. And I'll explain in a moment more about where you can see all of the questions and then the individual resources. So on a very, very practical level, particularly for those of you who've not yet started this, these are the steps towards applying for an Eco Church award. And one of the things I'd really encourage is to register and get started. One of the good things about opening up your survey is that you can dip in and out of it at any time. So go in there, have a look, and you may surprise yourself, and you're perhaps at bronze at 1 or 2 levels already. So it can be quite encouraging. And although this survey update was launched in October, we've already had many churches who've gained their bronze awards with the new survey. So don't think it's out of reach. We're trying to make this accessible. So register with your church. You register as a user and then your church, and you can have several of you who can access the survey at one time. So that will make it easier for you to share and see what's going on. Start a survey. Once you have completed your survey, then you can apply online for the award. And then the important part, really important, is to celebrate. It's really, really valuable to share this news when you get the award within your church and within your local community. So this is what it looks like, the Eco Church survey, the login screen online. This is where you would register or log in if you're already a user. And then the 5 categories, this is the front page of the Eco Church survey, and you would go into each category and start to tick questions. This is what it looks like when you open one of the categories up. You start to read each question behind one of these numbers, and this bar that's kind of bronze coloured at the moment on your screen will shift from being blue to bronze to silver to gold, depending on your answers within each category. So it's quite a nice way of seeing your progress. And you may feel that you may discover that you're bronze or silver quite quickly, or you may discover you're gold in certain categories, but bronze in others. So that helps you to guide where you may take your next steps. And obviously, in order to apply for award, you need to be at the required level in all 5 categories. So bronze in all 5 categories to apply for a bronze award. So that's the EcoChurch platform. There are 2 aspects to EcoChurch. There's the EcoChurch website and then the platform where the survey is. And there's different places you can find help and support for those on both of those settings. So on the EcoChurch platform where you find the survey, there's a button on the top right, which is where to find it's the help guide. And then you can research or look up information about different aspects of finding help. How do you register your church? How do you add a new person to your team? How do you update your church details? So those are things on the EcoChurch platform specifically related to using the survey. That's called the help guide. And also on the help guide, there are some short videos as well that just show you going through the physical steps of registering, which can be useful as well. So now I want to highlight a number of the different resources, because I think this is going to be really useful wherever you are, if you're just starting out or if you've been using EcoChurch for several years. We've got lots of resources that have recently been updated. So this is just going to highlight those pages on our website where you can find that information. So we've got a resources page, we've got news and stories, and then a heading that says, what is the EcoChurch survey? So I'm just going to briefly mention, as I say, you'll get these slides. So you'll be able to click on the links and find these pages for yourself if you're not familiar with them on the EcoChurch website. So on our resources website, under each of the categories, we've got a number of information sheets that you can read more. I'll just mention that we've also got some areas to help with kids and youth resources. Someone earlier mentioned about looking for things to do with children within their church. So we do have some resources specifically there on that page as well. On the stories and news page, this can be quite nice just to look through, see what's happening elsewhere with other churches, and read about what's going on. And it's quite inspiring just to see some of the examples that have been shared from other churches. I mentioned the some of the new resources. So this is a really good place to start if you are coming back to the survey, you haven't looked at it for a while, or if you're brand new. On the overview page of our website, we have overview documents of each of the 5 categories. So this gives the biblical foundation for the category. It gives an outline of what the category is about, and then it has some resources or some further reading around the topic. You can also look at PDF versions of all of the questions for each of the 5 categories. We appreciate that it's not always easy to be exploring this when you're perhaps with your church or your PCC, so you can download the questions from this page of the website. And then we've got some newer resources as well. This screenshot here is just showing, you may not be able to read it, but the pioneering models of worship. So we have a new resource specifically around churches who are perhaps not fitting into the usual mold, perhaps meeting outdoors, having a pioneering model. Our new resources are color coded, so these resources are all dark green. The buildings and energies resources are red colored, so that just helps you as you're jumping about to these different pages. Hopefully the colors will help keep things in order for you. So another new resource, which I think can be useful wherever you're at, but it is called Getting Started, and I'll send out this PDF document after the meeting together. This is just a useful 2-page document to help you get started. What are some of the things that you need to do? Gathering a team together, this sense of ownership, making a commitment, collaborating, learning from other people, connecting with your local community. Some sort of the top 10 tips for getting started. So hopefully that will be a useful resource. I will just mention this, wherever you're at, hopefully at some point you'll be ready to go for gold. The gold award, as you've seen from the numbers, is quite a big step. And so when we have a gold application, we want to go deeper into what that church is doing, to not only see how Eco Church is embedded within that worshipping community, but also to learn from that church. Gold Eco Church has really become a beacon in their community, and as soon as you're a gold church, you get approached by other churches, say, how did you do this? What did you do this? So we really want to be able to get to know those churches well. So we ask for additional information, but we also visit that church either in person or have an online meeting so we can see around and get to know the people within that church. So it's a little bit more involved, but I just thought I'd mention that, whether that's for yourselves or perhaps other churches that you know. I'll just also mention this, that we have a number of ways. It's really fantastic that you guys meet once a month. We also have opportunities for you to gather with other eco churches at our Eco Church Prayer Forum, which happens 4 times a year. So the next one coming up is in February, and that's, if you go to the events page on the Arocha UK website, you can book your place there. But that's a really nice way. There's opportunities to share, hear from other churches and learn, but of course to pray together as well. So that's coming up. And this is we launched an appeal and campaign just before Christmas. We have now exceeded 8,000 eco churches by the end of 2024, but our goal is to see 20,000 churches registered and engaged with Eco Church by 2030. And it's ambitious, but I think it's realistic, and I think it's great to see that movement. And I think there are times when we can feel, oh, I'm just doing this, I'm just plugging away at getting this mowing regime adjusted within my churchyard, or we're just trying to look at what heating solutions we might have. But you're part of a much bigger movement, and I think that's very exciting and really encouraging too. And those are some links and information which are, as I say, when I share the slides, you will be able to click on those. But the key things there are the Arocha UK and the Eco Church website. Okay, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And sorry, that was a little bit hurried through. I wanted to make sure we've got plenty of time for questions. I think it's really valuable to have that space as well. But hopefully you've got a sense of the survey and also where you can find more information and the resources to support you in your settings. Okay, back to Ben.
Holly, thank you so much. I'm always amazed just how much there is. It is a complex thing, and yet it's also accessible and we engage in it. I think it's worth recognizing that actually the work that Eco Church enable us to partner in is a huge undertaking, and it has grown exponentially over the years. So if you as a church or a representative of your church are thinking, who are the mission partners that we could engage with this year and how could we support them? One of your partners could be Arocha, and that could be one of the ways that you look of both supporting in prayer, but also the giving of your church financially. Arocha is a great partner to work with, so I'd highly recommend that if you're thinking, who else can we partner with? Questions, because I'm hoping there are some. So Andrew straight in there. Let's have some questions. Go for it, Andrew.
Can I just want to, is it just the Eco Church thing that's been updated, or has Eco Circuit District Diocese changed?
The survey has been updated. So obviously that's for all denominations. The eco circuit and eco diocese has not been, although I know that we're partway through getting the criteria for the silver eco circuits or synods. I'm not quite sure which ones, but they haven't, nothing else has been updated as such, but I know that they're still rolling out for example, we've got bronze and silver eco diocese criteria. I think that's being mirrored with the others, but there's not been a change to that.
George, hi.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Polly. That was terrific. I love the idea of it being a movement. You know, this isn't another project or even a bigger program. It's a movement, and I love that. Yeah, I'm going to be really pedantic, perhaps. When our church went for silver a couple of years ago, and thankfully we're successful in doing that, I then so that then goes into kind of archive, doesn't it? You know, in terms of if you want to then go for another survey, if you like, an updated survey, you call it something else, don't you? Or maybe you don't. I think what I did when I was working with the church to try and go for gold, and we're some way off it, I have to say, I called it, you know, St Mary's Church Penzance going for gold in 2024. It's a pedantic question, I'm sorry, but does one change the name of the I don't know, before applying again, submitting an application, do you change the name subtly?
So certainly there's two parts. I think so. The first part is that any survey that quite often a church will open maybe two surveys, and particularly with the new survey where you might be trying out different pathways, you might want to almost have two surveys open at the same time. You can absolutely do that. In terms of then, once you're ready to apply for award, anything old becomes archived. And also just to mention that if you have a survey open currently on the old version, that will automatically be archived. So you will be able to see it on your registration, but you won't be able to adjust it or change it. So that was the first bit. In terms of naming, quite often we do name a survey. I don't think you can change the name of your survey, but it doesn't really matter what the name of the survey is. Very often a church will say going for gold, and then they might end up being able to apply for a silver award. So they then apply for a silver award. But if there's an issue, yeah, so I think that's probably the best answer to that question. Was there something a bit more specific? I can open up the platform to try and illustrate.
It's okay. That's really helpful.
Yeah. But sometimes when you know, we can look at the platform and see that a church might have 4 surveys open at the same time, but you use one of them and then you go for your application there.
And then when you submit it again, say you're going for gold, you just say, in our case, St Mary's Church Penzance. That's what you name it as.
No, so once you've submitted a survey or applied, that's then finished. You then open a new one to go for the next award. I think that's the important bit, but you don't need to rename that survey. When your application comes in, it's the name of your church that we see. We can see the name, whatever you've called your survey, but it sort of doesn't matter. You might want to call it going for gold. You might want to call it just the date that you've started it. It's up to you. But the name of your church is the important bit that we see automatically.
Right. Well, mine isn't so much a question. It's just a reassurance for people. How actually helpful the surveys are. And my little thing was, when you read the questions, you know, first print out the questions, read them, and you look at them and you think, oh, we don't do that. So go away and next day come back and look at it again, or the next day after, and you'll find that you actually do it. It's just you never thought about it. So you've got a question about recycling. And I thought, well, we don't really recycle in the sense that you're asking, because we've got a recycling centre right next to the church. So you just chuck stuff over the hedge. Well, not quite, but that sort of approach. And we struggled a bit with our recycling. And then, having been awarded our award, I was chatting to one of the mums, and she said, well, but we recycle Sal's shoes, don't we? Oh, yeah, I never thought of that. So we recycle shoes. And she had an email from Sal Shoes in Ghana with a little girl with the shoes that her daughter had sent to Ghana, and a picture of it. And I think when you're trying to fill a form in, you quite often get brain freeze. And if you go back and you look at it the next day, you'll discover that most of the things that you were asking about, you've actually got, and the church is actually doing. So we started doing a bronze application and discovered, to our surprise, that we were silver. And like you said, some of the things we did were gold. And then we started a new survey. Forget the survey you've done, start a new survey and look at the questions again, is my thing. And you'll find that actually you can do the whole thing. And when the judges come, because on your sheet you said some judges come, the judges are actually lovely, right? They're really helpful and understanding and look at it from your point of view. And in many ways, it's Arocha finding out about you more than criticizing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So my only comment is sit down, print the forms out, fill them in tonight, and send them off to you tomorrow. Okay. And anybody who hasn't applied for a bronze, just sit down and do it. Because I'm pretty sure that every church in Cornwall could get a bronze, and nearly every church can get a silver if they take time a day to think about the answers to the questions. They will find the answers going on in their church.
Thank you, Robert. That's really super points made. And just to add on to that, I think sometimes it can feel overwhelming. You know, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of areas, but quite often there's overlap between things. And it depends a little bit how your mind works. Sometimes it's nice to think of the overlaps and interconnections. Sometimes it's nice to sort of think about them as discrete categories. But picking up on the recycling idea, at my own church, we have a bra recycling box. Bras are a funny item that don't go to charity shops, not quite sure what to do with them. Anyway, there's a national scheme called Against Breast Cancer, and they collect bras. And it's been one of the most impactful activities we've done, because it's recycling, it's thinking about lifestyles and how you recycle things that you don't need anymore. It's also been really strong community engagement, because everyone in the town knows that we do this, and they can come to this eco church to take this item that they don't know quite what else to do with. So there's connection with the community, global lifestyle, and energy, whatever section you want to think about. So that's also something to bear in mind. So yeah, thanks Robert for that point.
Yeah, and I'll pick up on that as well, because I think this is one of the key crossovers between social justice and climate justice. Every time I walk into one of our churches, and some of you have got this in your churches, where you are a recycling clothes hub for the community, and I sit in a space and I see boxes of shoes and I see boxes of clothes and the banners and the information about what's going on. I sit there and I pray and I wonder who God is going to bring to put these clothes on. And something quite incredible is happening, that everyone kind of gets the idea of, oh, actually, yeah, there is a second life to most products that we have. Even if I'm done with it, it's a blessing for somebody else. That's really changed in culture. But now this idea that actually we don't have to put everything on Facebook or Marketplace, whatever else you want to do, we can give stuff, and that stuff has tremendous value and gift and blessing. And that shape of recycling, I think that's the fullest understanding of recycling, and it's a blessing to all involved. So if your church doesn't do that yet, it's a great way to engage with your community.
One of the things that we do have with the updated survey is some resources around environmental policy, and I think one of the things when you're coming to the read the survey questions. There can be quite a bit about sort of, have you got a policy? Have you got a statement about this? And I would encourage you to have a look at the guidance we have around the environmental policy. We've got a simple one and a more complex one. We've got templates as well as information. And that can be quite useful, again, to just frame and to guide your church within what you're trying to do in that area. So don't be put off by some of those questions that say, do you have a policy about this? Do you have guidance? You can pull it all into one environmental policy, and they're quite good places to start, particularly if, like me, you kind of prefer to have a document that's there that you can adjust and tweak to your setting rather than having to start from scratch. So that's a useful document, again, whether you're new or whether you're well into doing eco-church. It can just help kind of pull together the different facets of practical creation care within your church setting.
Amazing. Rosie, what have we in the world of notices?
Right, well, I've got 4 things. We were mentioning earlier about the Give to Go Green funding. There is going to be next week 2 webinars, the 14th and the 15th of January, which you can go along to. If you're not sure what it's all about, and it sounds all very complicated, I suggest that you go to that. And then afterwards, if you've got any questions or anything you're interested, do come back to us. I think that I will send out the link, I think, straight away after this meeting to you all, so you've got it. So that was Give to Go Green. I don't know whether George might want to mention about the Climate and Nature Bill, but basically it's coming up for its 2nd reading in the Parliament. And they have got the expected number of MPs that they really need, but on the day, if someone pulls out, they need to be ensured that they've got enough MPs voting for it. And down here in Cornwall, it's a little bit disappointing because there's 3 of our constituencies who have not actually said that they will be attending on the day. And that's the Truro and Falmouth, that's Jane Kirkham, which is mine, and then Noah Law, St Austell and Newquay, and Anna Gerald, South East Cornwall. Now, it's very easy if you go to the 0 Hour website, and you can actually write to your MP very easily and just to encourage them to attend on that day. So again, I will be sending that out straight after this gathering. We've got the energy footprint tool. I know you're all super excited about that for 2024, for last year. It is going to be opening on Monday, so they promise us. And listen to this, it's going to be closing at the end of June this year. So we've got to ensure that we get all our energy footprints in, please. There'll be a mailing going out to our treasurers probably today about this. But if you're the person who actually does the readings, or you see your treasurer, please do warn them that energy footprint time again, please. And then finally, just to remind you all that the Church of England has published an environment calendar for 2025. I showed it to you at the last gathering, but it's just a really good way if you're thinking now, oh, I've got a bit of time now, what can we do during the year? Well, how can we plan our year? It's well worth looking at. I will include it in our mailing, but if I just quickly see if I can share screen, just a minute, just to remind you what's happening. Share. There.
You got skills, Rosie.
Sometimes. So, you might be thinking, yeah, I want to plan my year. And these special days, special Sundays, are a good way to sort of dovetail your events into. If you think you've got an idea and think, I don't know, but I like to do something about recycling, well, you could do it on the 18th of March, Global Recycling Day. It just adds a little bit more weight. And you could go to the website, you'll find more information there. So I do encourage you to have a look at that. You can start even planning for the autumn, and there's all sorts of things. So there's that. And that's me, I think, all done.
Amazing. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Polly. What I will say is with the annual calendar, Rosie and I are on a bit of a mission to get every diocesan department to adopt a day throughout the year where they speak out. It's one of our key things: cherish creation, cut carbon, speak up. And we're trying to get every department to adopt a day within the year where, when they tweet or put stuff up on social media or on our website or anything else, they say, today we are all about living churchyards, or today we're all about World Oceans Day. So that might be something you as a parish can also adopt, that you might say, do you know what, that really fits with who we are and where our church is based. Let's make a thing of it. Let's use this as a way of gathering our community. And that will tick boxes on your community engagement element of your Arocha Eco Church Award. So all of these things, multifaceted, and all feed into it. Just going to say, unless anyone's got any notices, anything that someone was desperate to share with the team? Helen.
Sorry, it's nothing to share, but I just wanted to ask Polly, is there a 2025 version of the Eco Tips calendar?
Yes, there should be. I know, because
Right, okay.
before Christmas I was having to contribute to my tips, so I will double check where that is.
Okay, because we've been putting that in our newsletter every month, and it was just nice to see it in paper. And
yeah.
Brilliant. In which case, just huge thanks to Polly. Thank you for giving up 2 hours of your precious time to come and spend it with us. But also huge thanks to all of you. It is such an encouragement always to hear what's going on. I kind of, I go for my little 10-minute tea break, kind of whooping into the kitchen going, oh, come on, all these brilliant things happening across our diocese. And that's because you're doing them. So bless you and thank you. And we look forward to catching up over the course of the next month. We are next meeting on Thursday the 13th, I think it is, of February. It's an evening meeting, so it's our alternate meeting, 7 to 9. And we have Claire Fussell joining us from Operation Noah. So another great area of focus, something we're fully engaged with as a diocese. So come and hear. It will be a great evening. Blessings all.